More than 2 persons will be allowed to dine in together at one table in all states starting tomorrow, as Putrajaya relaxes restrictions under MCO 2.0. According to Senior Minister Security Cluster, Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, this will still be subject to table size, with a 1 metre physical distancing between diners. The government will also allow more than 2 persons to travel together in a vehicle based on its passenger capacity. The states that are currently under the MCO until March 4th are Kuala Lumpur, Selangor, Johor and Penang. Perlis is under the RMCO while the rest of Malaysia is under CMCO. Today's announcement follows the recent fall in infectivity rate, which is a gauge of how contagious an infectious disease is. Health website Code Blue has pointed out, however, that the positive rate, which is based on the number of individuals tested, remains high, indicating there are more cases in the community who haven't been tested yet. As of today, Malaysia has recorded 274,875 COVID-19 cases. Daily cases are down at 2,712, but the number of deaths stands at a record 25 today, taking total fatalities to 1,030. The Kuala Lumpur High Court is allowing the infamous "Can I advise you something" recording of Datin Seri Rosmah Mansor's conversation with Datuk Seri Najib Razak in her graft trial relating to the 1.25 billion ringgit solar hybrid project for schools in Sarawak. Justice Muhammad Zaini Mazlan said that he arrived at his decision after perusing the amended Section 41A of the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission Act. The judge said the audio recording and the transcript are now admissible in evidence, although the weight to be attached to them is a different consideration altogether. He then ordered Rosmah to enter her defence. She has chosen to testify under oath, which means that she will testify at the witness stand and can be cross-examined by the prosecution after she gives evidence in her defence. The accused is usually the first defence witness called. Senior Deputy Public Prosecutor Datuk Seri Gopal Sri Ram had said in his opening statement in the trial that Rosmah wielded considerable influence by reason of her overbearing nature and placed herself in a position where she was able to influence decisions in the public sector. The prosecution wanted to admit the audio recording intercepted by the MACC as evidence to show this. The Department of Statistics Malaysia says the number of jobs created in 2020 fell by some 30% to 73,000 from 104,000 jobs created in the previous year, and warns that it will remain challenging for the labour market in early 2021. Chief Statistician Datuk Sri Dr. Muhammad Uzair Mahidin said in a statement that employed persons recorded a marginal increase to 15.1 million persons, while the unemployment figure edged up to 711,000 persons. This resulted in the jobless rate spiking to 4.5% against an average rate of 3% recorded during the pre-COVID-19 period. Muhammad Uzair added, 2020 had been a tough and unprecedented year, but it also gave industries the opportunity to re-examine business models and venture into new areas. He said some improved their adoption of digitalization while others resorted to flexible working arrangements. However, he highlighted that some businesses may find digitalization more challenging due to the existing operational structure and lack of technical competencies, especially the small and medium enterprises. He said it is pertinent to ensure continuous support for these smaller businesses in making the transition. Siam Darby Plantation swung back into the black in the fourth quarter of FY20, posting a net profit of 149 million ringgit compared with a net loss of 58 million ringgit a year earlier. That's thanks to higher crude palm oil and palm kernel prices, as well as higher fresh fruit bunch output. Its downstream units also recorded improved earnings from its Asia-Pacific and European operations. Quarterly revenue rose 8% year-on-year to 3.64 billion ringgit. It declared a final single-tier dividend of 5.42 cents per share. For the full year, Siam Darby Plantation posted 1.19 billion ringgit in earnings versus a net loss of 200 million ringgit a year prior. Full-year top line increased by 8% to 13.08 billion ringgit. Chairman Tan Sri Megat Najmuddin Megat Kas says the planter expects to achieve a satisfactory performance this year, with crude palm oil prices seen staying elevated. One of its immediate priorities is to allay the concerns of its stakeholders over the withhold release order issued by the US Customs and Border Protection over forced labour allegations. Managing Director Muhammad Helmi Othman Basha says Siam Darby Plantation is working with independent and credible organisations to address this matter expeditiously. Shipping firm MISC says net profit more than doubled in the fourth quarter of FY20 to 556.5 million ringgit as impairment loss narrowed. Top line rose 11.2% to 2.64 billion ringgit, underpinned by higher revenue at its offshore and heavy engineering segments. MISC declared a fourth tax-exempt dividend of 12 cents per share. For FY20, however, MISC booked a net loss of 43 million ringgit versus net profit of 1.43 billion ringgit a year earlier, weighed down by provision for litigation claims and write-off of trade receivables and loss on remeasurement of finance lease receivables as well as impairment loss. Revenue, however, was 4.9% higher at 9.4 billion ringgit. Looking forward, the group expects the crude tanker market to remain challenging amid uncertainties over the recovery of oil demand and with vessel oversupply weighing on spot markets. It says the recent reimposition of lockdowns in various parts of the world could hamper economic recovery, though an effective global rollout of COVID-19 vaccines is likely to bring back the increase in refinery runs in the second half of 2021, which would drive tanker demand.